morning, everyone. Welcome to the Waken the Masses podcast. We've got Jack DuChene here, myself, Michael Watkins. Really, to kick this off is, well, I've given a lot of thought to this, how to open this up. And, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine, a good friend, and he got some of the information that we've been talking about, and I've been mentoring under you, Jack, for quite some time now, and really, truly are a great business partner on everything that we're doing. But really, everyone that I talk to, they're like, who is this guy? And the information that you've got is really compelling. And really, how did all this come about? So really what we're doing here today is to lay out the groundwork and why you're here. What are you doing? Why are we even doing this podcast? All of that is really, we got to hear your story, and we got to find out, how we got to this point now. Now, I know all this stuff. I've had the pleasure of, uncovering all of it with you and you sharing all that with me. However, the people out there, they don't know. So why do they need to listen to you?
I have no idea. I really have no idea why I would know anything I know and how all this happened. I do know things that have happened that I guess semi or explain all of it. So I'll just start with just a basic background of, coming into the world in August a long time ago, and being raised in a family of dysfunction, and probably most of them are, right? I would say most of them. I think Tony Robbins said something funny. He said, show me a functional family. Mine had its own flavors of dysfunction, alcoholism, sociopathic behavior, abuse, and things like that. And we were not religious people, nor went to church or any of those type of things. However, when I left home at 15, I went on my own little journey and was playing music and hanging out and partying and having a good time. And I was about 18 years old, and I found out that I was going to end up homeless if I didn't figure something out. So I had went to this lady's house who had bought an above-ground spa from me, I forgot, several months prior, and was making payments every month. So I went to get my payment. I remember the payment. It was $160. So I went to go get the payment, and I explained to her that this had happened. And before I go any further in the podcast, just want you to know there's some things coming up here with a church or things going on, and this is not a religious podcast, so just listen through. However, I went to this lady's house, and I sort of told her my challenge and what was going to happen, and she said, well, I have a friend. Let me call him and bring him over and see if he can help you out. And as we were waiting for him, she made me pray with her. Didn't make me, but asked me to, and I did. And then this guy shows up, John Sweeney, and he tells me, yeah, I've got a business. He was sort of a handyman, contractor type of person, and he had work for me and a place to live. He just said, you got to go to church. So I said, that's fine. Sounds better than homelessness. So I went to the church with him, and there was Bible studies, church, and all that. And within a few weeks, I got pretty involved in all that, and was pretty heavily involved from 18 till about 20 years old in that religion. And then I started to do what they call backsliding. I wasn't really going to church, and now I had this girlfriend who was going to become my wife. So I get married to her, and then we moved to Mount Charleston, just a little ways outside of Vegas, up in a mountain about 40 minutes outside of Vegas. And one night I was up in the lodge area, and we were partying in the cabins, and I would leave the cabin and drive to the lodge and drink at the bar. And the guy working the bar wanted my job. So he found out later he had made a call to the two police officers up there, Smike and Eichner and Smackner. I remember these guys. And basically said, hey, Jack's just leaving the bar and he's drunk. So they went ahead and positioned themselves right by my cabin. So as I pulled in to get to the cabin, they pulled me over, and I got arrested for a DUI. So back then, my theories in life, coming from dysfunction, were don't face things, run. So I ran, and I ran to Phoenix, Arizona with my new wife, who I'd been married to for a short period of time. I think we're at 4 months or something. And I went to Phoenix because my father and mother were in Phoenix in a park called Moon Valley. And my brothers and sisters all still lived with them. So I called them up and said, hey, can I get a room? And they had an extra room there, so they let us move in. And a couple weeks into it, my father called me into his office. He had an office in the house, and he said, do you know where to get $200? And I went, well, not really. We just got here, and I don't have any money, and she doesn't have any money. We don't have jobs yet. Why? And he said, well, they're going to turn the power off tomorrow. Now, from the history of being raised with alcoholics and freaks, there was quite a few times power was turned off and evictions happened and cars were repoed. Like, Dad's going to work. 5 minutes later, he walks through the door. What are you doing back here? Car's gone. So things like that went on. So it wasn't unusual. I was again coming in on the tail end of something. Like, he had a business running and destroyed it, and I was in the tail end of it. So I was sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, it is right around June and we're in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've only been married 4 months. And if they turn the power off, I'm pretty sure my wife's leaving and going back to Vegas to her, her parents. One was the chief of the fire department, and, they made good money, had a nice house. She'd have her bedroom back with air conditioning. So, we all have to think. We have a brain, and my brain whispered to me, the reason this is happening is God, Jesus, they're upset with you because you're backsliding. You're smoking weed, you're drinking, you're swearing and listening to rock and all this stuff, which I had stopped doing when I was involved in the church. So I decided, all right, that's probably what's happening, so I think we better go to church. And I opened the phone book because in Vegas I went to a place called Calvary Chapel. And I looked, and there was Calvary Chapels here in Phoenix. So I found one that was pretty close to Moon Valley. It was, I believe, off Peoria in the 17. And I called them up because it was a Wednesday when all this happened. And I called them up and said, do you have a service tonight? Because in Vegas, they had a Wednesday night service at Calvary Chapel. And they said, well, yeah, we have a Wednesday night service tonight at 7 o'clock. So I told my wife at the time, all right, we're going to go to church tonight, which she was fine with. I was the one who brought her to church and converted her or whatnot. So she was fine with that. So we walk into this church that we've never been in before, and I would say, estimating, memories of 40 years ago, maybe 150 people. It wasn't massive, but it was a good chunk of people, maybe 150 people, 200 people. And we got there just right after they had started, so we found a couple seats towards the back, and we sat down, and, the band played, and then they did announcements, and then the pastor did a message, and then they started praying. So I bowed my head, and in my mind, I wasn't like screaming it out or anything, but in my head, I'm praying, if you got $200 and you could send it this way, I'd appreciate it. I'll be good, I'll be good from now on. And, I think part of what I was thinking was maybe I could ask for help, like talk to the pastor. Maybe they have an assistance program for things like power bills being cut off or power getting cut off or something. Yet when it was over, I stood up and I thought, I'm not going to ask for help. Things are going to be okay because at least I came to church. I remember the distinct thought, at least you came to church. Things should get better now. And then I looked at her and said, okay, let's go. And as we were walking out of the church, somebody walked up behind me and they tapped me on the shoulder. And I turned around and this guy was standing there. I'd never seen him before. And he had a Bible in his hand and he opened the Bible and he said, what's your name? No other introduction or anything, just what's your name? I said, Jack. And he writes this down in his Bible. And he says his last name. And I go, DuChene. He goes, spell that for me. And I'm spelling it out. And, brains are always chiming in, so my brain's figuring, he's noticed we haven't been here before and maybe inviting us to a Bible study or a newsletter or something like that. And he gets finished spelling my name, and he goes, okay, God told me to give you this. And what he had been doing is spelling my name on a check that was already filled out in his Bible for $200. And he hands it to me. So obviously, I am 21 years old at this point, and this is a frickin' miracle. I'm like, holy crap. I stare at the check. I just sat in a chair. I just sort of almost fell into the chair and just stared at the check like, this is amazing. And we're talking, I think it was 1983. So $200 back then would be worth what today?
Like probably 600 or so.
$700. This guy's handing me this thing with now as I sit in the chair and just stare at the check, I'm sure with my mouth wide open, he grabs a chair and he turns it around and sits down right in front of me and he goes, that was to get your attention. And I was like, you got it. You got it, man. And he says, okay, God wants me to tell you something. So I'm pretty zoned in on it. He goes, all right, God's going to have you do something very important in the world. And I'm thinking, well, yeah. And then he says something weird because as he says the next thing, I'm already figuring out what this is. And he says, and it has nothing to do with what you're thinking now, which is an odd thing to say. Yet I had already decided right when he said you're going to do something great in this world, I was like, well, of course I am. I'm going to have the biggest Christian rock band in history, and I'm going to bring millions of people to the church. But then he says that statement, it has nothing to do with what you're thinking now, which was odd. And then he says, oh, and you're going to go through 2 decades of darkness before you even do anything about it. Now, when he says that, I'm just looking at him. I don't say anything, but my brain is moving. And I'm thinking 2 decades, 41 years old. Now, 41 when you're 21?
Oh, you might as well be in the grave.
It was like grandpa. I was like, well, that's silly. And I don't say anything to him because I got the check. He got that right. But I'm thinking, well, no, there's no way I'm going to, be in darkness for 20 years. And by the time I'm 41, I'd almost be dead. What would be the point? So I'm fine with that. I just leave the church. I have the check. I go home. I present the check and exactly what had happened to my mother and father. And my father just absolutely blew it off as nothing, like, well, the churches just do that to get the rest of your money or some weird thing. My mom, she was raised Catholic, so she was a little bit more into the, wow, that is a miracle, like, wow. And I give the check to my dad to pay the power bill, which he did, so that we could stay there. Now, for most people, or maybe not most, who knows how many people, if that happened to them, would have straightened up and changed their frickin' life? Like that would have been
it's probably a 50-50 shot.
Yeah, like a lot of people would have been like, well, that's it. Here's the miracle. I'm now in the church and I'm just a servant of God and that's my whole focus in life. I have evidence now that this is the right church, which was what I always sort of made up about the check. Like, oh, the check was to let me know this was the right religion, because when you're raised with no religion and then you're just in one and you find out there's a lot of other ones, you sort of question, like, well, how do I know this is the right one? So I figured that was the reason the check happened, was to prove that point I was incorrect. So I go home, and all I remember is about a week later, I was driving in my 67 Cougar listening to Def Leppard Pyromania with a beer and a joint and thinking, you piece of shit. Like, you had a miracle and you're just sinning again. So I don't know what's going to happen after that, but that's when the journey starts. So then we have 2 decades of darkness to deal with, which I did. And they came in the form of the first decade. So we're going from about 21 to about 31, 32 will be spent in what I consider ignorance, just utter ignorance. Now I'm building the second decade of darkness during this time, but that time I just call ignorance. I just stayed in my basic programming from childhood and all of my ideas. I'm a bigot. I'm this and that, just nasty stuff. And then the second decade of darkness, I would just say that was the decade of addiction. Although the closed-mindedness and the bigotness and all of those things disappear during that time, because that's when I got introduced to Tony Robbins and Wayne Dyer. And that's when I got introduced to self-awareness, personal development, and all that was right around 31, 32. So as I am empowering myself to these concepts and new ideas of how to succeed in this world and how to maximize your experience, I'm also declining and dying in this alcohol stuff that's going on at the same time. And oddly enough, I end the addiction in February 24th at 41 years old, just before I'm turning 42. So this is not to the day of the day I was in the church, because that was around June. This is February, but this is 2 decades. And then from that point of the 2 decades being behind me now we are 2 decades later today. So fully 4 decades have went by, 2 of them in darkness, 2 of them doing seminar work, helping other people, and sort of gathering the information. Because if you're going to do, his first statement was, you're going to do something powerful in the world. Well, if you're going to do anything powerful, I guarantee you it's going to have to do with information. It's going to have to do with language and information. It always has. From every great person, from Jesus on, it's always information. That's all it is. So really, Awaken the Masses is only presenting the information that has come through in the last 2 decades. So we can start from there. So again, this isn't a religious thing. I don't go to any church. I'm not part of any religion. However, the information that we're going to discuss now, that's the powerful stuff. That's what we're here to discuss.
Absolutely. It's definitely getting that information out there. And, you talked about it. Well, we've done a podcast about the word, right, and language and the information and all of that. Incredibly powerful. I think how many people are out there simply throwing their words out and about, not really understanding the meaning behind their words and the reality that they're creating with their words. So, and then that's all based in belief.
Yes, and that was probably part of the first stuff that came through. If you're looking at information, if you're going to do something powerful in the world with humans, then it's going to be information based. And the first information that came through that started to change everything, at least for myself, was what is a belief? Because I think we all know what it means, right? We have a belief system. If you tell someone you have a belief system, they're like, yeah, okay. And we know what a belief is because we throw them around all the time. Well, I believe this. Well, I believe that. Well, I don't believe that. Well, I believe that. Through the journey the last 2 decades, I started to keep questioning, what is that? What is a belief actually? And it took a few years for it to come through, but when it came through, it was powerful. And basically, a belief is an agreement with information. That is it. And that's a lot. So an agreement with information, now to clarify that so we understand what the statement means. If you take a set of information like this, there's a being who's omnipresent and knows everything everybody's doing 24/7, 365 days a year, and they're watching everything that everybody's doing. And each person doing what they're doing, this being has a tally sheet that's sort of keeping track of whether they're being bad or being good, I guess. And when you do something good, you get a little tally on the good side. And if you're being bad, you get a little, well, what was that about? And you get a little bit of little tally on the bad side. And this goes on and on and on until this judgment day happens, where you'll either be rewarded because you have more good than bad, or you will be punished because you have more bad than good. And now that information is just information, yet if you give it, then who are we talking about? And a lot of the times people will go to God, which it does describe that experience. However, this time we were talking about Santa Claus. So now there's other information also for Santa Claus. So picture this. A child has no idea about Santa Claus, zero. Because they don't have concepts and things very young. But around 4 or 5, I think it starts.
Like even 3.
3, all right. They see the cartoons, the little movies, the little pictures, and the parent starts giving them the information. Well, Santa's, he's a great guy. He's a little overweight. He wears red jacket, and he's got a beard, and he's older, and he lives in the North Pole, and he's got a wife and little people that make up toys, and then he's got reindeer, and once a year he travels the whole world and gives all the good girls and boys little toys, and the bad ones get coal in their stocking, and the child gets the information. Now, before the information, the child has no concept of a Santa Claus. It doesn't exist. There's no belief. There's nothing. It's zeroed out. Now the child has information, so it creates a belief. So if another person said to the child, hey, so do you believe in Santa? They go, yes. See, the minute they agree to the information, it becomes a belief. That's what we mean by a belief is an agreement with information. Once the child agrees to the information as being fact or true, then it becomes a belief. Once it becomes a belief, it becomes part of the child's identity. So now, in this particular story of Santa, the child can be manipulated with the story, the information.
Oh, yeah. Santa's got power, right?
He's got power because he cannot give you what you want. Now, there's a tooth fairy and Easter bunny. They didn't seem to give them that power. You lost a tooth, you got whatever, some change or $1 or $5, whatever it is today. And the Easter bunny was pretty simple. It was just, there's some hidden eggs and there's some chocolate over here and whatever. But Santa had this power. So the child could be manipulated with a belief that is a frickin' lie. So now the child, right around November, you start hearing things like, if you don't clean your room, Santa's not going to bring you. If you don't behave, Santa's not going to give you. So now the child has fear. Manipulation and fear come into and the reason that's happening is because they believe something that is not true. So then the child eventually, like myself, found out Santa wasn't real. Like, about 8 or 9, I find out Santa's not real because I saw Santa and I sat on his lap and told him what I wanted. And when I went to school and told a couple of my friends, some older kids heard me and they were teasing me, calling me a baby, this and that. So I asked my mom and then she came clean that Santa wasn't real. Yet all those years, lying and manipulation had been going on. And once I understood Santa wasn't real, well, then I regained the power that I had given to that lie. Because now when they said, hey, you better clean the room or Santa's not bringing you guys anything, I know it's bullshit. Like, no, it's mom and dad who bring you everything. So what I found out from that is everything that we believe that isn't true takes power away from us, takes power away from the Creator. And now it's questionable whether there's any belief at all that we need at all here to create and to exist. I'm not able to find a belief that we need.
No, we talked about this before. Yeah. I've been doing the same practice and searching. Okay, what belief do I need to have to exist here and go through this thing called life?
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a belief and then there's knowings and then there's possibilities. I would just point it that way. Because somebody did tell me, well, you better believe you need water. Like, not really.
No, you know you need water.
I know I need water. It's not there's no belief about it. So when we look at a belief and we say it's in agreement with information, now stage 2 comes in. What is information?
It's the language.
It is word. It is language. Now, this is important. Word. Okay, so go back, because I did spend that couple years in the church, and I read the Bible several times. There's an interesting line in the Bible. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God and is God. Is that not incredible? That it's basically telling you, I'm not sure how everyone's missing it, it's basically telling you that God is the Word. Perhaps not a being floating around in the sky somewhere, judging everyone, all 8 billion plus all the ones who come before and after and playing all that game. It's basically saying, no, God is the Word. And when you think about it, you cannot create an identity without the Word. You cannot create your world without the Word. You cannot create a country. You cannot create nationalism. You cannot create religion. You cannot create a God without language. Language is everything. So we ask a question, what is a rock without language?
Exactly.
Right. And we sit in silence because if you take the language out, then what is a rock? Now, the mind constantly goes to, well, I know what it is. It's right out front, right? There's some rocks out there. Yet if you take language away, then the rock is what?
It's just an agreement.
That's all it is. We've agreed in the English language to call the thing that we have all over the place rocks. A dog does not. A dog could be strolling across a bed of rocks and never see a rock, never understand a rock, because the dog has no agreement about a rock. And I'm pretty sure if you said rock or showed a rock to someone in China, they wouldn't say rock. They would have a word, though, for it.
Yeah. Because
language creates all reality. Now, what is a rock without language? Interesting. Who are you without language?
Well, that's a whole lot more powerful.
Yes. So who are you without language? That gets tricky. So then you find out, okay, who am I without language? So if there's no language, then I am not?
Yeah, you would just be here existing like all the other life forms on the planet.
Yes. So your physical body would be here. You would have no identity. Like Jack DuChene does not exist. I was told I was Jack. I was told I was DuChene. And then I was told because you're DuChene, that's French. And since Canada comes into play, you're French-Canadian, and all of these things that I was told, and then I brought those into my identity like that is who I am. Well, I'm Jack. I'm French-Canadian. I'm a male, right? And
that's how we describe those parts.
Yes. I came out with the joystick. So I'm a male and I'm French and I'm Canadian, and then all these other things that were placed on top of that to create the identity. So based on that, we can come to the conclusion that our identities are not real. They're programmed into the computer. We all have the computer. And the identity is programmed into there, yet it ultimately is not real. That is outrageous.
Absolutely. And one of the examples that we use all the time is, I'll take myself. If I went home with mom and dad the day that I was born. Right. Now, let's say they made an agreement to send me off to some couple in South Asia because they didn't want me. And I went home with them in South Asia, and I didn't learn English. I learned that. Yep. And I didn't grow up here in America, and I didn't learn any of that stuff there. I was raised over there, and I grew up with that culture. Does Micah exist? And the answer is no.
And would they have called you Micah?
Yeah, they wouldn't have called me Micah. They would call me whatever they call me over there.
So then physically you would be here, but you would have a completely different identity.
Correct.
Because of that, that shows that the identities aren't real, yet we believe they are.
Oh, it's easy to get trapped in that illusion.
Yeah, that the identity is real. So language creates the identity, but language creates everything, all of our reality. So we talk about, you have a planet and then you have countries. And the countries are all made up. They're based in language. They don't exist to the rest of the life forms. The rest of the life forms have no boundaries, no agreements, no countries. We create all that stuff. And like I said, you cannot create even the idea of a creator or creators without language. It's all language-based. And in the beginning was the word.
Absolutely.
Absolutely outrageous. So language creates all of our reality. It creates how we experience. It creates our perception. And beliefs are really powerful in creating the perception. That is why the information that has come in the last 20 years is don't believe anything, which is, When you're talking to people, it just doesn't, they just don't understand. Like, what? How did, you have to believe. We've been saying it forever. I believe this, I believe that. So you have to believe. Yet, do you have to believe?
No. If you're aware of it.
So if you don't have beliefs, what do you have?
Well, you would have your knowings.
So you have knowings, which are few and far between, but they are there, like we just talked about. I know we need what we call oxygen. I know what we call water. I need that. I know I need calories to exist. I have to eliminate waste, and I need rest at times. Those are the pretty solid knowings I got going on.
You could probably develop a couple others from experiences and
that
you go through, but those are still going to be fairly limited compared to our beliefs, and the belief systems that we create and all that.
Yeah, so we have certain knowings. I mean, there's things I know. I'm a musician. I know certain things about certain instruments. I know how to play certain instruments. I know how to record things. I know how to do. So we all create some knowings over time. Yet there's not a lot of those. There's a lot of beliefs. And beliefs are causing all the separation on the planet. They're causing all the problems on the planet. They're causing all the chaos, the wars, destruction, suffering. Tons of human suffering. And, if you think about it, why are we here? What's the point? What's the purpose? It appears to experience, because we live in this realm of duality where you have the extreme of things and you sort of have to have both sides. There's no way to really understand joy if you never suffer. If all there is joy, then you don't know that. It's like a fish in water. If there's just water, you don't know you're in water. You have to have the opposite. So in a utopia vision, which I've heard before, where there's just no suffering, so you're taking out the duality of it. And I'm not sure that's the way to go here, because we are here to experience duality. Yet, life itself will provide plenty of that for us without the fucking bullshit of
absolutely
beliefs in how we use them, and how even, very, I don't want to call them intelligent. I don't know what to call these people. The ones that understand all this, that the way to hypnotize, the way to control the masses, and the masses are the creators on the planet, is to lock them into beliefs, to create beliefs for them that will, like a country's no problem. I'm really, if you're using it like a sector, like a place to identify where you're at on the planet, is fine. But if you create it as more than that, if you create it as something that's alive, that you should pledge allegiance to, and you should be ready to die for this thing, and it's better than any of the other things, and you're better because of that, because you are that. It's part of your identity. They gave you a birth certificate. You still have it. And when it gets to that place, then we are absolutely duped, and we will die, fight, war, do horrendous things to each other, all based in belief that is just a bunch of bullshit. See, life itself will give you a natural duality, a natural playground of suffering and joy and ecstasy and pain, and, the great teacher, pain and pleasure, would be there anyway, because you're in an unstable environment. No matter what. Even if we got rid of the beliefs and we all accepted we're creators, and we'll talk in a moment about why we're creators. Even if we did all that, and we got rid of all the war and all of the suffering and the massacres and the genocide and the lying. I mean, they lie and just manipulate. All that went away. You're still in an unstable environment. So you still can have a child and they could still get hit by a car. You could still be in love with somebody and they could decide they're not in love with you and have heartbreak, or, your spouse passes away, or you lose a parent, or and all that. So you would still have a healthy degree of duality. There would still be suffering. You'd know suffering to have the joy. You just wouldn't be manufacturing absolute bullshit suffering through beliefs that are just lies.
Absolutely. Well, and then you just go back into your history and look at all of the genocides and the wars and the pure annihilation of people alone off the face of this planet based in religion, based in ideology and beliefs that people, you just look at literally every single war in history is all based in belief.
It's all based in belief. And the thing is, beliefs are agreements with information. Information is the word, and the word creates all of reality. So all nationalism, all religion, all things have been called forth. They have been brought forth from the invisible into our reality. They weren't there before. So as creators, we have the power to call forth whatever we want here. So we've talked about it before, and a good example is human rights. It's just an example of a thing that didn't exist at some point. And you could go to religion as well. It didn't exist at some point. So human rights, no one ever heard of it. No, as a matter of fact, it didn't even exist. There was rights for certain people on the planet, kings, emperors, religious higher-ups, and the religious, priest and cardinals and popes and different people like that. They had some different kind of rights, but the average, the masses had no rights whatsoever. And then somebody comes up with the concept of human rights, that all humans would have rights. And that becomes an idea. So it's locked into a mind, and it comes from where? It comes from inspiration. It comes from some invisible place. And then this concept goes out and becomes a reality. And then it becomes alive. I would call it alive at that point. Like it becomes a part of our reality and it's alive. So now if you ask people, what is human rights? They would be like, oh, I know what that is. And they could tell you about human rights, yet it didn't exist 100 years ago, 150 years ago. Didn't even exist, wasn't even there. This is how we create here. We bring forth reality. Where humans are right now, the creators, I'm not even sure we're humans. I'm questioning.
Well,
it's just another word. No, we are the creators. How do we know we're creators? Well, look around. See this microphone? It's being filmed by a camera. I'm wearing these clothes. I'm sitting in a chair. We're in a building. We're in a city. All of it's been created. It's been created from an invisible place and brought into our reality. We create from the invisible and bring into the material world. So we have proven over and over again, we are creators. Yet when you look at all that stuff, yeah, we create all those things, but we also create war. We create suffering. We create all of that because we believe lies. End of story. If we didn't believe the lies, we would take our power back. That's why it's important, and part of the biggest message for Awaken the Masses is don't believe anything, question everything. So question everything means be open-minded, but don't believe anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it's having that understanding that if I'm going to believe it, I'm taking it on, and it's going to become a part of my identity. If you're believing a complete lie, right? And this is why we're finding so much content now, and so many people are having the debate. Well, flat Earth, round Earth. I don't know either way, but this is it's relevant right now. You go pop on all the social media. Hey, the flat Earthers, they make some compelling evidence there. There's some compelling information.
Well, yeah, because once you quit believing, so where are beliefs stored? They're stored in the computer. All right, so it's a computer. Your brain is a computer. A computer is modeled off the human brain. So your brain is a computer, and just like a computer, it gets loaded. And if it's just loaded with beliefs, and the beliefs are lies, and most of them are, I'm sorry, but most of them are lies, well, then it takes up all that space. You're not able to create space from a place where you look at things and you don't believe anything, so then you would question everything. So Awaken the Masses, 40 years ago, this guy gives me the check and he tells me this is going to happen. And then 20 years goes by of the darkness, because that's how screwed up I was. It was going to take 20 years for me to maneuver out of that to get into this place to find out that beliefs have not only no power, and you would think they did because, I mean, for years in the seminars, I'd be like, look, beliefs, there's empowering beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. And there's disempowering beliefs, and you want the empowering beliefs. I didn't understand. You don't need any beliefs. You just need honest thinking, and you just need to have your knowings. You don't need the beliefs, even empowering ones. The problem with an empowering belief is somebody comes into like any awareness training, Tony Robbins, wherever you want to go. And let's just say they even know it, that they have a negative. I'm pessimistic. My wife tells me, my friends tell me, and then so you've got a negative belief system going. You've got a pessimistic program running. And then you go into you come into our ABLS, our level 1, and you sit there for 2.5 days and you get out of there and you're like, whoa, now I've got a positive mind. So let's just say you're trapped in a little box of negativity, and that's in here. It's all trapped in negative everything. People are even annoyed at you. Like, geez, do you find the good in anything? And you're like, no. And you're trapped in that little, and then you do the seminar and you're like, oh, I'm completely different. Your friends are like, he's positive now. So when you're positive, what's the first thing you notice?
The negative.
You've noticed negative people. You're like, man, that dude's negative over there. So the positive becomes another box. It becomes another trap, probably more comfortable. I liken them to like jail cells of, the normal jail cell downtown to the jail cell of the rich and famous when they go to jail. Like, yeah, the positive box you're trapped in now is nicer. It's got a full flat screen on the wall. It's got a nice mattress. The guards are nice. You get lots of time. You're playing cards. Bubba's not raping anybody. It's pretty clean. Then you have that. So, yeah, the negative beliefs would be like the little 6x6 cell where they're raping you and beating you and all that stuff's going on. So, yeah, it feels better. I get that. Like okay, if you had to have a negative mindset or a positive, it would feel better to have a positive mindset. But that's not where the power is. The power is always going to be in just honest thinking, authentic, honest thinking. Somebody asked me in one of the level 1s, how do I get to my authentic self, which is a new wavy, type of adventure. How do I get to my authentic self? What's my authentic self? My authentic self is this over here. My authentic self. No, your authentic self has no beliefs.
No, you'd have to lobotomize yourself.
Done. You have no beliefs. They don't exist in your world because beliefs, all they do is cause problems. So they create realities. They call them forth. So all the countries on your planet were called forth. They didn't exist prior to them being called forth. The challenge is then they become alive. They become real. But they're not. They're a lie. And because they're a lie, you give your power to the lie. So if I call forth a country and then I decide, well, it's this type of a country and this is the God of the country and the children need to pledge allegiance to the country and the children need to be taught that they may need to die for the country and all that. All right, well, you've made the whole fucking thing up.
Yeah.
So this is why it's best not to believe anything because they made that gig up. So now you have separation. You have division. And the best of all the religions on the planet and all the governments and all the nationalism on the planet, they have fucking failed. They have not unified anything. They have nothing. They've done nothing but cause massive separation. There was a gentleman in one of my classes who was very high up in a religion, and when we do an experience in the class that has the possibility of creating a win-win or a lose-lose, he created a massive lose-lose. And then he didn't understand the next day as he said, I don't understand. I was raised in my church from the beginning, and I've done everything I was supposed to do. How could I not see that? And my answer to him was because your church, as in all of them, cause separation. Because if a person doesn't believe what you choose to believe, and they don't believe in your model of religion and your story of religion, well, then they're out. They're not part of it. So those beliefs create massive separation, not just in the world where you have different countries and you don't need them. If you wanted to use them for just geographical, where am I at on the planet, that'd be fine. But when you turn them into a real thing that you should die for, that you have children pledge allegiance to, and not just this country, that's all countries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Dying for, pledge allegiance to, all of that kind of stuff, you cause nothing but separation. Religion has caused nothing but separation. Governments, nothing but separation. And now if you want to get really, really awakened here, you should realize something. In all of the different countries, and there's a lot of them, and they have different philosophies, different things they go by. Some are socialist, some are more republic, some are communism, they have all these different countries, and they don't agree on things. They war with each other. They agree on nothing. Don't underestimate the power of what you just saw. This is why Awaken the Masses is happening now. Don't underestimate the power of what you saw 4 years ago when that COVID hit, and they could shut down the entire world within a few days. What does that tell you?
They're all collaborating?
Oh, yeah. That's telling you that there is a group of people that is basically running your world. And they're running it because they are going to continue to push absolute fucking nonsense beliefs onto the masses. And the masses are the creators. And they are going to continue to do that until the creators wake up and put a stop to it, because what they cause is separation. Even in your own country, they've done nothing but cause more separation. You just had an election. There's blue states and red states. Separation. Two-party system. Immediate conflict. Fucking immediate conflict. The minute you have two parties, you're going to have fucking conflict.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you choose somebody to lead? If you get a corporation and you need a president, you should pick the best person to be the president, not what they believe, not what they have been brainwashed with, not what they have been convinced of, but who is the best person for the job. And then the country divides itself into the states because everybody knows, Texas is the biggest, baddest state, or unless if you're in New York, because Texans a bunch of hicks and rednecks, and New York is the one, and then LA over here. And then you get into the state, and they separate it again within the state because, this city's better than that one, and that one's not as good as this one. People are absolutely mind-fucked in all of this. And people meaning masses, meaning creators. See, if you wake up and you let go of the beliefs, then you clear up the space in the computer. Now you can question things because you're not looking to validate your beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's all the brain wants to do is validate its own beliefs. Once you get rid of the beliefs, there's nothing to validate. There's just, okay, let's have a conversation. You brought up flat Earth. Interesting, because you're right. I've been on the internet, we'll say Facebook when did that come out?
2005,
something like that. I've been on Facebook. I've been on all these different things. Only in the last couple of years is there flat Earth stuff every which way I'm going. And it's valid. It's like a valid thing to be asking, but you cannot ask those questions if you blindly believe everything you're believing. And there is nothing in the information I've seen on flat Earth or a round Earth that proves it, that ultimately says, here's the truth.
Yeah.
It's just stuff to look at. So if you want to look at things like that, once you clear beliefs out of your mind, and now you've actually cleared the space, so you have your little handful of knowings, and if you don't know it, where does it go?
Possibility.
You just got a file over here, possibility. I'll just put it in possibility. So when you look at the flat earth from a no belief standpoint, you don't have a belief around, flat, anything. Maybe it's not even here. Maybe it's a simulation. It's only here because I'm aware right this second. Other than that, it goes away again. And for each 8 billion people. Yet, if you don't have that, then you can have a conversation on the possibility of it being flat or round. So if you look at it that way and you say, I don't know, all right, so I'm going to be neutral here. I have no beliefs about it either way. So let's just go into some, I don't know, well, let's just look at things that we know about any of it. So let's just do a knowing on water first. What do you know about water?
Well, I know that it lays flat. I'm
Yes.
not able to, it conforms to the vessel that it's in.
Yes.
All right.
Have you ever created a pile of water?
No.
No. Have you ever created a pile of leaves?
Absolutely.
Okay. In Michigan, when I grew up in Michigan, they'd make us rake all the leaves, and
You jump into them. Like,
yeah, jump into the leaves or burn them or whatever you want to do with them. Yet you cannot create a pile of water. And water always goes to the flattest surface. So you look at the model and you say, okay, based on what I know about water, it wouldn't work on that round thing. Now, unless if there's something else I'm missing, which maybe I am. Yet other than that, no, the water would just fall off the round thing and just fall, I guess, to wherever the bottom would be somewhere. So that's just what I know. Now, you say that and then somebody's going to go, gravity.
Oh, gravity, man.
Okay. Yet what is gravity?
It's a theory. Some will say that it's a law, but yeah, there is the theory of gravity.
So the law part, I get. They're just saying, I don't know, the apple fell and it hit the ground. And if I'm 3 steps and I jump off the 3 steps, I'm going to hit the ground. That doesn't prove gravity, though. That just proves something that we are seeing for sure.
Absolutely.
Like we have a knowing of that. Yet it doesn't prove gravity. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't prove it's a law or anything because the actual law behind all that may not be gravity. It may be something else. I just heard one guy basically making it more like a magnet. Like you're positively charged and the earth is negatively or neutrally charged, and that's why you're pulled to it like a magnet. You're pulled. But it's not a super, super tight pull. It's not like you cannot lift off it. Yeah. You can jump, a foot or 2 feet or something. You're still coming back down.
Yep.
So I know that about water. So you take that and then you go, okay, now let's just look at what do we know about, movement on the planet, how things move. Like I saw that Elon Musk and Trump and them, I think Trump went to watch his rocket. Did you see the rocket?
Or he was watching it on TV and he's like, hold on, when it was coming back down into the little grabby thing. Is that what you're talking about?
No. This was just like last week.
Oh, okay.
Like they watched a launch.
Oh, nice.
And Trump went with them and some of the new entourage. And now as the rocket's lifting and they've got a camera on it and it's going up and up and up and up and up and up, I'm going, okay, well, now based on what I know about movement, if the world, first of all, if it's spinning 1,100 miles an hour, well, I don't think the camera view would be the way I saw it because the camera looked very stationary and the rocket looked stationary. So if it was spinning that fast, the person with the camera would be out pretty quickly. And then if the Earth is hurtling at 66,000 miles an hour, what's happening to the rocket?
No.
The rocket leaves and the Earth is gone because I think I've only went in a car. I did go 120 once. That was pretty fast. 66,000 miles an hour is outrageous. So the rocket would jump. So then they go, so what's the answer to that? Why is the rocket staying with the planet that's hurtling 66,000 miles an hour when it has left? Like if I'm standing on the roof of a car and it's going 120 miles an hour, then so am I.
Yeah, until you jump off.
Jump up in the air straight up. What happens to the car?
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone. And where am I? I'm going to hit the ground. Okay, so, and then somebody told me something even more outrageous. Well, the sun is hurtling at 100 and something thousand or 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Oh, and then the galaxy itself is hurtling through the universe at this other absolutely mind-blowing number that we're just spinning wildly, chaotically through the nothingness.
So why would the creators believe any of this? There's no proof to any of this. They're just telling you this.
Yeah.
And everything they say as a fact, especially paid scientists that are paid to say what they say, there's no fact of this. They have no proof anything's hurtling that speed. How would they know that the sun's 93 million miles away or how big it is? They don't fucking know. So they've made up an entire illusion and we're just sitting in it and manipulated by it. And it's been going on forever. If you look back in the days of kings and emperors and all of that, it's a weird view. It's like, all right, there's a castle and there's a king and maybe a queen and a prince or whatnot, or a princess. And then they did have their, what did we call them? The
serfs. The peasants.
Well, they had those
workers.
outside the castle. Inside the castle, there were still some people that would probably be uppers, right?
Yeah, you'd have some advisors.
Advisors and your general of your army and, different people that were able to hang out and be part of that castle and all that. Then outside the castle, you had your peasants. They lived in mud huts. They worked. And not only did they work, but then the king would send out his people, the tax collectors and all that, to start pulling and getting taxes from them or part of their harvest or animals or whatever to bring them all back to the king. So the king sits in this castle in total luxury while all of them do all of that. And then you say to yourself, well, why would the king want all those nasty, filthy, stinky mud hut lower vibrating beings all in its kingdom surrounding it? It'd be like, just get rid of all those and we've got what we have here. The reason? Because they cannot have what they have without them. Mm-hmm. Like they have to have them so they can have all that. They need them to be working. They need them to work 12 hours a day. They need them to give half or more of everything they earn and everything they produce back to the king so the king can live in all that. Because the same model of the king and the emperors having the castle and then being in control of all the masses that live in poverty. What's changed?
Oh, nothing. It's been this same way for
your king now
centuries.
The castle, it's your governments, mm-hmm. and they convince the people that they don't have any power. Religion plays a big part because they also convince them that they are defective. Mm-hmm. Many of them, you're defective from birth. And they create this illusion that you should go to school and you should study and you should you pass grade and you're in a 12-step at school. There's a 12-step program in school is a 12-step program from first grade to 12th grade. It's a 12-step program. And you are to complete that program. And if you do it the way we want you to do it, then you'll get good grades on all of it. And then you go into the workforce, and then you're going to give us half of everything you make from the time you start to the time you finish. And once you finish, we'll give you a piddly amount of almost nothing of what you've ever earned. So it's the same story for them to live in their $10 million, $40 million mansions, several mansions around the country and world, have a massive yacht and Lear jets and the best of food and 50 servants and a nutritionalist and a chef and a chauffeur and all of that stuff. For them to have that, they need you to believe that fucking bullshit lie.
Absolutely. So it's funny that you bring this up. I was a huge fan of Joe Rogan, listened to a lot of his stuff, and I ran across this short that came up this morning while I was eating my breakfast, and he posed the question like, "Oh, okay, what how much would it be if every person got like 200, in America?" He was using America as an example, but every person got $200,000 a year. how much money would that be? It ended up being like $40 billion. That's the budget of the military complex that, the U.S. government runs. Probably even just a fraction of the military budget, right? $40 billion.
And it gets much more intense than this.
It's not that crazy.
Well, no. I mean, they're dealing with trillions now.
Oh, yeah.
That's
absolutely.
nothing. But here's something for the creators out there. Here's something. This is all an illusion. Mm-hmm. Money is an illusion. It does not exist. It is all made up shit. So they give you a paper dollar, $20, $100 paper, and they tell you that's what it's worth. And then back in the day, you go, well, based on what?
Gold.
Gold. All right, gold's a fucking rock.
Mm-hmm.
It has no value whatsoever. The piece of paper has no value, and the digital thing is going to have no value at all. They have the entire world of creators on the planet absolutely fucking trapped down like slaves, believing shit that isn't real whatsoever. And it's time to wake up, take your power back. So what we have to do is the same thing that they did in the beginning to create religion, nationalism, governments, countries. They called it forth. They drew it forth from a place of invisibleness. It came out. Then it can become alive. Like it's all, nationalism is alive. Your governments are alive. They're all alive. We have to call forth this whole reality of a world that works for everyone, a you and me world instead of a you or me world where we don't live. Now, it doesn't mean we have to stop the fun things we do. We don't have to turn into a was everyone just going to sit around and sing Kumbaya and we just trade each other's fruit with each other and say, I got a hamburger over you want. You don't have to do that. You just give up the lies. You just quit believing and you question every fucking thing. Just question it. It's beautiful. Then you can open your mind. So I never came to the conclusion the world's flat or round or even here at all. All of it. It's all an illusion. You say, well, yeah, but if we all agree to the illusion, then that's what makes it real. Okay, cool. I understand that. So if we all agree that this dollar that says 20 on it is worth $20 and I can trade it for that thing because you want $20 for it, I understand that. What I'm attempting to wake you up to is the fact that is that the best model? We can draw forth. We can create any reality we want. This one doesn't seem to be working. The religion, the governments, the nationalism, the fucking pretend money shit does not seem to be the ultimate way to go. So we together need to create and draw forth a different reality, a reality where children come into the world and they're safe. And I don't mean safe being they won't fall out of a tree and break their leg or maybe get hit by a car and be killed. Not that kind of safe. Safe from the absolute bullshit lies that go on in this world and destroy their self-esteem and cause so much pain and suffering and dysfunction. And then on top of that, allowing, like, we can create whatever we want in the world and we can have fun with it. Like, people like to watch football. You don't have to get rid of football because you're going to create a new world. You can still watch football if you'd like to. And if you want to aspire to be a football star or a coach or whatever, you can still do that. You're going to get rid of the bullshit, the nonsense that just causes division and suffering and destroys self-esteem and self-worth and causes so much damage that you would create things on the planet through such greed and power-hungry nonsense that you would poison people, like poison them. Like you're sitting there feeding little children, at least in this country. I don't know about all the countries, but in this country, you are feeding children so many toxic chemicals that cause a hyperactive brain, which is anxiety and stress. And then they label it ADHD and this and that and that. And then they tell you, oh, that's your kid has that. Now give them these narcotics at a young age when the brain is attempting to develop. And now you're putting narcotics, drugs, Might as well be giving them heroin and opiates and all that, and you're handing those to your kid, and the doctor told you to do it, and you got to trust the doctor because the doctor knows what? The doctor knows nothing. Many of them don't know anything except pills. They're like if you go to a doctor and you have a problem physically, and you go to a doctor and you say, I have this problem, and their first answer is a pill, then you're with a legalized drug dealer.
One of the things that I'll add to that too, again, you start questioning things, you start peeling back the onion, and you come to find out that, Rockefeller developed the entire institution for doctors. And
there you go.
The way that they structure it. Well, what is Rockefeller known for? He developed oil, and Big Pharma was created out of all of the byproducts of oil, and they figured, we can use this here and there for all these medicines, and then all of a sudden you've got this guy who you start, and then again you question it. You got this one guy who manipulated and created the education system, the doctoral education system, essentially the backbone of the big pharmas and all those companies, and it just all of it. And then you just like, who is this guy?
Well, he was one of those ones we talked about, like a king,
exactly,
an emperor. He was in a different reality.
Yep.
Like they live in a different reality, and this is what the creators need to do to wake up. You need to understand they need you to stay asleep. They need you to believe complete nonsense. They need you to be confused. They need you to be limited. They need you to believe in all of these lies so they can have what they have. If you wake up, they don't have it. This is all going to end. So whatever the guy was talking to me, 40 years ago, handing me a check, I never saw this guy again, never went into that church again. Oddly enough, again. You would think that would be my new home. Holy crap, dude. Yet if something was going to happen, and if I was going to be a part of anything that was going to be big in this world or very important to this world, it would be information, and the information that we're going over right now. And we're just touching on it. Every single thing that we brought up right now could be an hour or two podcast by itself.
Oh, absolutely.
To dig under it, to dig beneath it, to do all those different things with it. Yeah, this is what has happened over the last 20 years. So just to recap, in the last 20 years, we found out a belief is an agreement with information. However, the brain fights and argues and needs to protect and validate every belief. This is why we're getting to the place where I'm thinking beliefs were a problem. Like beliefs have been perpetrated as something that's real to the creators on the planet, and that has caused them to fall asleep. It has caused them to be blinded so they're not able to see the truth any longer. They're just all completely blinded in belief. So beliefs are agreements with information. Information is the word. In the beginning was the Word, and it was with God and is God. It's telling you language is God, not something in the sky, not something judging you, not something that needs retribution, not something that's favoring these people but not these people. Do you understand how crazy beliefs are? That there can be a row of houses, and there can be religious people in every single house that are attending whatever church they're attending, and a tornado hits, and they're all praying that their house doesn't get destroyed. But one half of the street's houses get destroyed, and the other half is praising God for sparing them. Mm-hmm. Well, what about the other side? So getting people to believe that this is a reality when it's not. God is Word. Word creates all realities, draws forth all realities. Your identity isn't real. It's a bunch of agreements. It's a bunch of beliefs that have went into your brain from the start, from the fact that you were named something and then born somewhere, and then you wear it like it's part of you. Well, I'm from New York.
Yeah.
So I'm a New Yorker. All these statements, can them. There's one statement. I'm a creator. We have proof of it. It's a knowing. Everything else, it's a game. Play the game. It's time for the creators on the planet to wake up. It's time for the game to flip. For too long, the majority of the masses, and they're all creators, have been held down in illusions of belief and nonsense and separation and nationalism and religion. And even that book, question the book. There could be a creator, I don't know. There could be an ultimate one creator created everything, or there could be a whole realm of beings that created everything. I have no idea. I don't have a knowing of that, but I do know this. I am here now, and without the identity and without believing that I'm Jack or that I was born in here and I'm from there and I'm this and I'm that, and I get rid of all that, then I am only standing as I am a creator here, now, creating, fully aware that I am here, now, creating.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to bring this up real quick because I think it's really pertinent to exactly what you just talked about. And we talk about this book quite often. It's the power versus force, right? And, however, there's the map of consciousness. And for those listening, and, highly encourage you to go check it out. Go look at that map. But at the top is enlightenment, right? And I find it's fascinating, the definition of enlightenment. Through all this work, and we've had these conversations, you define enlightenment as the proper use of language.
Yeah.
What they define in the book as enlightenment is one that transcended one's identity. Yep. So they put the Buddhas, the Jesuses, all those people that walk this earth, that's how they define them. As one that transcended their identity. So, Jesus, transcended his identity and he no longer said, I'm Jesus. He said, I am. Yeah,
that was the major
powerful
thing. Two major things. Yeah, the proper use of language would be a sign of enlightenment, because you don't see enlightened people bitching and complaining and stuck in all their beliefs and all that kind of stuff. And then ultimately, for the enlightenment definition in power versus force, is one that has transcended their identity. So if you've transcended your identity, that means you don't believe any longer in the information you have been given. So we drop beliefs. So in our world, you know it, or it's a possibility. And why do we do that? Because a belief becomes a trap. It becomes limiting. No matter what belief, empowering, disempowering, doesn't matter. It has a limitation to it. A possibility never does, and it doesn't take up space in the computer. If I have a belief, it logs into the computer, and part of the brain's job now is to defend the belief, to validate it, to keep enforcing it, to keep reinforcing it. Here's all that matters. Don't believe anything. Question everything. You'll come out with knowings. Knowings are great. And I don't mean the knowings based off beliefs, because you have those too.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I have a knowing for sure. All men are pigs. My first two boyfriends cheated on me. That's not a knowing. That is a conclusion to something that has happened, yet still filtered through your beliefs, because if you had different beliefs, you wouldn't say all men are pigs. You would say something else. Like, I have a bad picker. Or, I'm just attracting the wrong guys. You wouldn't come to the conclusion men are pigs. So beliefs out, knowings, power. Everything else goes into possibility because it takes no space up in the computer. And when your computer has a lot of room in it, then you have a lot of room. And that room now becomes creative space. Space for you. So for us, drawing forth a world that works for everyone, a you and me world, as opposed to you or me world. That is something we will draw forth with the help of the creators on the planet. But then you also get into your individual movie of yourself. And that one has the same thing. Get rid of the beliefs, just keep knowings, possibilities go out, and then you have a lot of space to create your reality. What you want in your reality. Right now, how many beliefs you think a person has?
Too many to count sometimes.
It could be hundreds, could be thousands, could be tens of thousands. I have no idea.
Definitely thousands into the tens of thousands.
Yes. So examine all of them. Let them go. Again, we've been looking. I'm not able to find one. I'm looking for one. Like, is there one belief I need to have so that I can create here and I can be aware here?
Yeah, I haven't found one myself.
There's not.
So.
There's not. There's no power in them. I don't know when they came in. I don't know how they came in. I don't know the whole story of all of it. Yet it is time to awaken the masses, and the masses are the creators. Now, this isn't good news for the old model. All of these other things are alive. Your military complexes, your governments, your nationalisms, your religions are like alive things, and they don't want to die. And if you believe in them, you definitely don't want them to die, because then parts of your identity die. As a creator, you'll find out that's the good thing. You don't want to be left with anything except sheer knowings, and that you are a creator and you've been creating your entire life from the moment you got here until the moment you leave, and all you have is what you create. And it's a miracle, is what in the term miracle that they use, that you're even on the planet, that you even have a seat here, that you're even aware enough to listen to this right now. So the question from here on out, creator, is what are you going to do with what you have?
Absolutely. Well, I know that it's been incredibly freeing for myself. Have a lot of open space after starting to question a whole lot of things. Blessed to have you as a mentor and a partner, Jack. Thanks a lot for listening to us. This has been the Awaken the Masses podcast, and this is really kind of the groundwork, the foundation. We're going to be having a lot more of these, laying and getting into those topics that you talked about. Like we'll have a whole podcast based on belief versus knowing, and start to dive into all of these things. So super excited to have you on and listen. Thank you, audience, for those that are out there. And I think it's time to peace out.
Peace out.
Adios.